His fist connected with her jaw. The crack echoed through the silent gymnasium like a gunshot. 40 sailors held their breath. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb stood there smirking, waiting for her to cry, waiting for her to crumble, waiting for proof that women didn't belong in his world. He got none of that. What happened next took exactly 1.8 seconds. And it ended with a decorated officer flat on his back, gasping for air, staring up at a 25-year-old woman who hadn't even broken a sweat. This is the story of Specialist Riley Hayes. And this is the day assumptions died on a training mat in Norfolk, Virginia. If stories of quiet strength and earned respect speak to your soul, subscribe now and stay until the very end. Drop a comment telling me which city you're watching from. Let's see how far this story travels. The gymnasium smelled like rubber sweat and testosterone. Naval Station Norfolk's Advanced Combat Training Center had seen thousands of warriors pass through its doors. Champions and cowards, leaders and followers, men who thought they were gods, and men who discovered they were merely human. Today, it would witness something none of them would ever forget. Riley Hayes stood in the center of the worn blue mats. Her uniform was faded from years of salt and sun. Her boots were scuffed, but polished. There was nothing remarkable about her appearance. Average height, lean build, brown hair pulled back in a regulation bun. If you passed her in a hallway, you wouldn't look twice. That was exactly how she wanted it. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb circled her like a shark that had spotted blood in the water. He was 6'2", 220 pounds of muscle wrapped in a crisp, new uniform that seemed to reject the humidity soaking everyone else. He stopped directly in front of her. "So," he said, his voice carrying across the silent room, "this is what diversity quotas look like in action." A few sailors laughed nervously. Most shifted uncomfortably on their feet. Riley said nothing. Her hands remained loose at her sides. Her breathing stayed slow and even. Webb leaned closer. "What's wrong, sweetheart cat? Got your tongue?" "No, sir." "No, sir," he mimicked in a high-pitched voice. More laughter from the crowd. Louder this time. "Well, at least you can speak. That's more than I expected." Senior Chief Daniel Vance watched from the shadows near the equipment room door. He had been in the Navy for 28 years. He had served in 3 wars. He had seen men break under pressure and men rise to occasions that should have destroyed them. Something about this situation made his gut tighten. He studied the young woman in the center of the mat. Most people saw what Webb saw. A small female sailor. A checkbox on a form. An obstacle to what men like Webb considered the natural order of things. Vance saw something different. He saw the way her weight was distributed, perfectly balanced, ready to move in any direction without a single wasted motion. He saw the way her eyes tracked Webb's movements, not with fear, with calculation. She was reading him like a book, cataloging every shift of his weight, every telegraph of his intentions. He had seen that look before. In the eyes of operators who had survived things that would break ordinary men. What the hell is she doing here, he thought. Webb grabbed a training pad from a nearby rack and slapped it against his palm. The sound cracked through the air like a whip. "All right, ladies and gentlemen," he announced. "Today we're going to discuss the reality of hand-to-hand combat. Not the Hollywood version, not the politically correct version. The real version." He began pacing in front of the assembled sailors. 40 pairs of eyes followed him. Most were young, fresh from technical schools or their first fleet assignments. They still believed that rank equaled wisdom. They would learn. "The battlefield is not a place for hesitation," Webb continued. "It is not a place for second chances. When your rifle jams and the enemy is on top of you, there is only one thing that matters." He stopped and pointed at a young male sailor in the front row. "What is that one thing, seaman?" The sailor straightened. "Training, sir." "Training," Webb repeated, nodding slowly. "But training has limits, and those limits are often determined by biology." He turned back to Riley. "Petty Officer Hayes here represents a statistical reality that we cannot ignore. Smaller frame, lower muscle mass, slower reaction time." "My reaction time is 0.18 seconds, sir," Riley said quietly. The room went still. Webb's smile tightened. "Excuse me, 0.18 seconds. That's my measured reaction time. The male average is 0.25. Someone in the back row sucked in a breath. Webb's face reddened. "Did I ask for your statistics, Petty Officer?" "No, sir." "Then keep your mouth shut until I tell you to open it." "Yes, sir." But the damage was done. The sailors had heard her. They had seen Webb's expression flicker. The first crack in his armor of authority. Webb knew it too. His jaw muscles bunched. His grip on the training pad tightened until his knuckles went white. Vance shifted his weight. He could feel the tension in the room climbing toward something dangerous. He should step in. He should say something. But something told him to wait. To watch. Webb threw the training pad aside. It clattered against the wall. "Fine," he said. "Let's test those superior reaction times. Front and center, Hayes. We're going to do a little demonstration." Riley stepped forward. Her face remained neutral. No fear, no anger, nothing. "The scenario is simple," Webb explained to the crowd. "An attacker has you in a dominant position. He's bigger, stronger. He has control of your arm." He grabbed Riley's left wrist. His grip was too tight, deliberately too tight. She didn't react. "From here, the attacker can strike." Webb raised his free hand. "He can choke. He can take you to the ground and finish the fight." He pulled her arm at an awkward angle. Still no reaction. The defender has limited options. She must create space. She must break the attacker's posture. She must generate enough force to escape. He looked around at the watching sailors. But here's the problem. Someone her size will never generate enough force to move someone my size. That's not sexism. That's physics. He yanked her arm again. Harder this time. Riley's expression didn't change by a millimeter. "You see," Webb laughed. "No response, no counter. In a real combat situation, she would already be dead." "Permission to speak, sir," Riley said. Webb's eyes narrowed. "What is it now? Your stance is wrong." The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. "Excuse me. Your weight is too far forward. Your grip is technically correct, but your elbow is flared. That creates a structural weakness in your position." Webb's face went from red to purple. "Are you trying to tell me how to fight, Petty Officer?" "No, sir. Just observing." "Just observing." Webb's voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You've been in the Navy for what, 3 years? 4, I've been training warriors for 15 years. I've been in real combat. I've killed enemies with my bare hands." "I understand, sir." Do you really understand?" He released her wrist and stepped back. His hands were shaking slightly. Not with fear, with rage. Vance took a step forward. This was going too far. But before he could intervene, Webb was moving again. "You want to teach this class?" Webb snarled. "Fine. Let's see what you've got. Attack me." Riley didn't move. "That's an order, Petty Officer. Attack me. Show everyone your superior skills." "I would prefer not to, sir." "I don't care what you prefer. I'm giving you a direct order. Attack me or face charges of insubordination." The sailors shifted nervously. This had gone from uncomfortable to ugly in a matter of seconds. Riley's voice remained calm. "Sir, engaging in unsupervised combatives outside of official training parameters could result in injury. I recommend we wait for proper safety protocols." "Safety protocols," Webb laughed. It was an ugly sound. "There are no safety protocols on the battlefield. There are no referees. There are no timeouts. There's just you and the enemy. Now attack me, or I will write you up for dereliction of duty." "Sir." "That's another insubordination. Keep going. See how fast you can destroy your career." Vance had heard enough. He stepped out of the shadows. "Lieutenant Commander, perhaps we should—" Webb spun toward him. "Did I ask for your input?" "Senior Chief." "No, sir. But as the senior enlisted advisor to this command, I have a responsibility to ensure training is conducted safely and in accordance with regulations. This is my training, my facility, my rules. Sir, with respect, there are Navy-wide standards that— Are you questioning my authority?" The room held its breath. Vance's jaw tightened. "No, sir. I'm advising you that this situation has escalated beyond appropriate parameters." Webb smiled. It was the smile of a man who believed he was untouchable. "Your objection is noted and ignored. Now step back and let me do my job." He turned back to Riley. "Last chance, petty officer. Attack me or face consequences." Riley looked at Vance. He saw something in her eyes. Not a plea for help. Something else. A question. A calculation. He gave her the slightest nod. "Whatever happens, he thought, I've got your back." Riley turned back to Webb. "Sir, if you insist on this demonstration, I need you to understand that I will defend myself if attacked." "That's the whole point, sweetheart." "I'm not finished, sir. I need you to verbally confirm that you understand the risks and accept responsibility for any outcome." Webb laughed out loud. "The risks you think you're a risk to me." "I'm asking for legal clarity, sir." "Fine. I, Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb, understand the risks and accept responsibility. There. Happy? Yes, sir? Good. Now attack me." Riley shook her head slowly. "No, sir. I won't attack you." Webb's face contorted with rage. "Then you leave me no choice." What happened next would be discussed, debated, and dissected for years. Webb swung at her. Not a training strike, not a pulled punch. A real swing aimed at the side of her head. Later witnesses would argue about whether he intended to make contact. Some said he was just trying to intimidate her. Others said they saw murder in his eyes. The truth lay somewhere in between. Riley moved. She didn't dodge. She didn't flinch. She flowed. Her head shifted 3 inches to the right. Webb's fist sailed past her ear close enough to ruffle her hair. His momentum carried him forward off balance for just a fraction of a second. That fraction was all she needed. Her left hand came up not in a fist, but with fingers extended and struck the brachial plexus nerve cluster on the side of his neck. The strike was precise. Surgical. Webb's right arm went instantly numb. Before he could process what had happened, she had rotated her body, captured his limp wrist, and used his own forward momentum against him. Her hip became a fulcrum. Physics, the very thing he had lectured her about, became her weapon. Webb was falling, but not out of control. She controlled his descent with terrifying precision. He landed flat on his back with a controlled thud. She followed him down her knee, pinning his good arm, her forearm pressed against his windpipe. Not a choke, a pin, a position of absolute control. He couldn't move. He couldn't speak. He could barely breathe. The entire sequence had taken 1.8 seconds. The gymnasium was silent, 40 sailors stood frozen, their brains struggling to reconcile what they had just witnessed. Riley looked down at Webb. Her expression hadn't changed. There was no triumph, no anger, no emotion at all. Just the calm, focused competence of a professional who had completed a task. "Sir," she said quietly, "I believe the demonstration is complete." Webb's eyes were wide. Not with anger anymore. With terror. Pure animal terror. He had never felt anything like this. The complete helplessness. The knowledge that his life was being held in the hands of someone he had dismissed as inferior. "Get off," he wheezed. "Do you acknowledge that the demonstration is over, sir?" "Yes, yes, get off me." Riley released him in one smooth motion and was on her feet before he could blink. She stepped back, hands loose at her sides, and waited. Webb scrambled backward like a crab, putting distance between them. His face was the color of old milk. His hand went to his throat, checking for damage. "You," he gasped. "You attacked a superior officer." "No, sir. I defended myself from an attack, as I stated I would." "I'll have you court-martialed. I'll end your career." "That is your prerogative, sir." Vance stepped forward. His mind was racing. What he had just witnessed was impossible. No one moved that fast. No one was that precise. Unless... "Lieutenant Commander," he said, keeping his voice neutral, "I think we should adjourn for the day." Webb was on his feet now, swaying slightly. "This isn't over." "Sir, you're injured. You need to see medical." "I'm fine." "With respect, sir, your right arm hasn't moved since she struck you. You may have nerve damage." Webb looked down at his arm. It hung at his side like a dead thing. He tried to lift it and couldn't. The color drained from his face. "What did you do to me?" he whispered. Riley's voice remained calm. "Brachial plexus stun. Temporary. Sensation should return within 30 minutes. Should, in most cases." Webb looked like he might be sick. "Most cases, 93% of the time, there are no lasting effects, sir." Vance filed that information away. That wasn't standard Navy combatives training. That was something else entirely, something specialized, something classified. "Petty Officer Hayes," he said carefully. "Report to my office at 1400 hours. "Yes, Senior Chief." "Lieutenant Commander, I strongly suggest you report to medical. I'll handle dismissing the class." Webb opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He looked at Riley, really looked at her. And for the first time, he saw what Vance had seen from the beginning. The quiet stillness that wasn't fear. The calm that wasn't passivity. The focused gaze that was cataloging, calculating, preparing. He had mistaken a coiled viper for a garden snake. And the viper had chosen to let him live. Without another word, Webb turned and walked out of the gymnasium. His dead arm swung uselessly at his side. Vance addressed the stunned sailors. "Class dismissed. Not a word of this to anyone until the official investigation is complete. Is that understood?" Murmured acknowledgments. "I said, is that understood?" "Yes, Senior Chief. Dismissed." The sailors filed out, casting glances over their shoulders at Riley, who stood motionless on the mat. She might as well have been a statue. When the gymnasium was empty except for the two of them, Vance approached her. "Petty Officer Hayes." "Senior Chief." "That wasn't Navy combatives training." "No, Senior Chief." "What was it?" Riley met his eyes for the first time since the confrontation began. Her gaze was calm, clear, and ancient, the eyes of someone who had seen things that would shatter ordinary souls. "I'm not authorized to discuss my training, Senior Chief." Vance nodded slowly. 1400 hours. My office. Yes, Senior Chief. He turned to leave, then stopped. Hayes. Senior Chief. He was wrong about you. A ghost of something flickered across her face. Not a smile. Something deeper. I know, Senior Chief. Vance walked out of the gymnasium, his mind churning. Brachial plexus stun, Tier 1 precision, complete emotional control under pressure. He had served with special operators. He had trained with SEALs and Force Recon Marines and Army Rangers. He knew what elite warriors looked like. He had never seen anything quite like what he had witnessed today. Who the hell are you, he thought. He was about to find out. Behind him, Riley Hayes stood alone on the training mat, the spot where Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb had learned the price of assumptions. She allowed herself one long, slow breath. Then she walked out of the gymnasium, her footsteps silent, her face revealing nothing. The legend was about to begin. Vance sat behind his desk, staring at his computer screen. His coffee had gone cold an hour ago. He hadn't noticed. The personnel file in front of him was unlike anything he had seen in 28 years of service. Most of it was redacted. Black bars covered entire sections. Classification markings he had never encountered before, stamped across page after page. But what he could read changed everything. A knock at the door. Enter. Riley Hayes stepped inside. She closed the door behind her and stood at attention. At ease, petty officer. She shifted to parade rest, her eyes focused on a point 6 inches above his head. Standard military protocol. Vance leaned back in his chair. Do you know why I asked you here? I assume it's regarding the incident with Lieutenant Commander Webb, Senior Chief. Incident. Vance almost laughed. That's one word for it. Silence. Sit down, Hayes. She hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Then she sat in the chair across from his desk. Her posture remained perfect. Her hands rested on her knees. Vance studied her face. Young. 25 years old, according to her file. But those eyes belonged to someone much older. I've been trying to access your full service record, he said. Yes, Senior Chief. Most of it is classified above my clearance level. I'm aware, Senior Chief. I've been in the Navy since before you were born. I have a top-secret clearance with multiple SCI compartments. I've been read into programs that officially don't exist, and I can't access your file. Riley said nothing. What I can see raises more questions than it answers. Your official rate is listed as Information Systems Technician, but your duty station history is entirely redacted. Your training qualifications are redacted. Your deployment history is redacted. He paused. The only thing not redacted is a note that says all inquiries regarding this service member should be directed to Naval Special Warfare Command in Coronado. Still nothing. Who are you, Hayes? I'm a petty officer 2nd class in the United States Navy Senior Chief. Don't play games with me. I'm not playing games, Senior Chief. I'm answering your question to the best of my ability within the constraints of my security clearance. Vance's jaw tightened. That move you used on Webb, the nerve strike, that's not standard training. No, Senior Chief. Where did you learn it? I'm not authorized to discuss my training. Because it's classified. Yes, Senior Chief. Vance stood up and walked to his window. He stared out at the gray Norfolk sky for a long moment. Webb is at medical right now. The doctors say he may have permanent nerve damage in his right arm. He's already contacted JAG. He wants you charged with assault. I understand, Senior Chief. You don't seem concerned. I documented my verbal warnings before the confrontation. I have 40 witnesses who saw him throw the first strike. I defended myself with proportional force. Vance turned to face her. Proportional force. You took down a man 60 pounds heavier than you in less than 2 seconds. The speed of the response doesn't change its proportionality, Senior Chief. I use the minimum force necessary to end the threat. The minimum force. Yes, Senior Chief. What would maximum force have looked like? Riley met his eyes for the first time. Something flickered in their depths. Something cold. You don't want to know, Senior Chief. The words hung in the air between them. Vance had interrogated terrorists. He had stared down enemy combatants who wanted nothing more than to kill him. He had never felt quite what he felt in this moment. This woman was not what she appeared to be, not even close. I made some phone calls, he said carefully. Called in some favors. I couldn't get your full file, but I got a name. Riley's expression didn't change, but something in her posture shifted almost imperceptibly. Dev Grew, Vance said. The word seemed to suck all the oxygen out of the room. SEAL Team 6, the most elite special operations unit in the United States military. Tier 1 operators who handled missions so sensitive their very existence was classified. I can neither confirm nor deny any affiliation with any Special Operations Unit Senior Chief. Cut the scripted response. I know what I'm looking at. With respect, Senior Chief, you're looking at a petty officer 2nd class who was assaulted by a superior officer and defended herself. That's all that matters for the current situation. Vance sat back down heavily. His mind was racing. If she was Dev Grew, what was she doing at Norfolk? Why was she in a basic combat training class with regular fleet sailors? Why was she letting a blowhard like Webb treat her like a punching bag? Unless... You're on a recovery rotation, he said slowly. Injured on deployment. Temporary duty while you heal. Riley's silence was its own answer. What happened? I'm not authorized to discuss operational details, Senior Chief. Of course you're not. He rubbed his temples. This was above his pay grade. Way above. Here's what's going to happen, he said. I'm going to make some more phone calls. I'm going to find someone who can tell me what the hell is going on. In the meantime, you're on administrative leave pending investigation. Understood, Senior Chief. Don't leave the base. Don't talk to anyone about what happened. And for God's sake, don't put anyone else in the hospital. I'll do my best, Senior Chief. Was that a joke? Her face gave nothing away. Dismissed. Riley came to attention, and turned to leave. Hayes. She stopped with her hand on the doorknob. Webb made a lot of noise about filing charges, but between you and me, he got exactly what he deserved. The corner of her mouth twitched. Just barely. Almost a smile. Thank you, Senior Chief. Then she was gone. Vance stared at the closed door for a long moment. Then he picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in 3 years. It rang twice. Vance, said the voice on the other end. Been a while. Master Chief Rodriguez, I need a favor. Name it. What can you tell me about a specialist named Riley Hayes? A long pause. Where did you hear that name? She's at my command. There was an incident. Another pause. Longer this time. Meet me at O'Malley's tonight. 2000 hours. And Vance, don't mention that name to anyone else. The line went dead. Vance set down the phone. His hands were shaking slightly. What the hell had he stumbled into? 3 hours later, Riley sat alone in her quarters. The room was small, sparse, military standard. A bunk, a desk, a closet. Nothing personal on the walls. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her hands. The same hands that had ended men's lives. The same hands that had saved her teammates from certain death. The same hands that had been steady through firefights and explosions and moments of absolute chaos. They were trembling now. Not from fear, not from guilt, from something else entirely. The anger. She had learned long ago to control it. to channel it, to use it as a tool rather than letting it use her. But Webb had triggered something she kept buried deep. The casual contempt, the smug certainty, the absolute conviction that she was less than, weaker than, inferior. She had heard it all before, from drill instructors who wanted her to quit, from teammates who didn't trust her, from enemies who underestimated her. Most of them had learned. Some of them hadn't survived the lesson. Webb was lucky. If she had wanted to, she could have killed him 6 different ways before he hit the ground. She could have crushed his windpipe, ruptured his carotid, driven bone fragments into his brain. Instead, she had given him a numb arm and a bruised ego. Merciful. That's what her instructors would have called it. She closed her eyes and forced herself to breathe. In for 4 counts. Hold for 4. Out for 4. The technique she had learned in the mountains of Afghanistan, waiting for targets that might never appear. Control, always control. A knock at her door shattered the silence. She was on her feet instantly, body angled, weight balanced. Ready for anything. "Who is it?" "Petty Officer Chen, ma'am. I was in the training class this morning." Riley relaxed slightly. She opened the door. A young woman stood in the hallway, barely 20, Asian features, naval intelligence insignia on her uniform. Her eyes were red like she had been crying. "Can I help you, Petty Officer?" Chen swallowed hard. "I just wanted to say, what you did today. I've never seen anything like it. It was just a training demonstration." "No, it wasn't." Chen's voice cracked. "I've been dealing with guys like Webb my whole career. The comments, the touching, the looks. You showed them. You showed all of them." Riley studied the young woman's face. She saw the pain there, the frustration, the years of accumulated slights and humiliations that ate away at a person's soul. She had felt all of it once, before she learned to turn it into fuel. "What's your name, Petty Officer?" "Chen, Michelle Chen." "Michelle, what happened today wasn't about showing anyone anything. It was about defending myself, that's all. But everyone saw it. Everyone knows now that he was wrong, that we're not weak, that we can fight back." Riley shook her head slowly. Fighting back isn't the answer. Being so good they can't ignore you is the answer. Being so competent they have no choice but to respect you. That's what matters. Chen wiped her eyes. How do you get that good? You work every day, harder than anyone else. When they're sleeping, you're training. When they're partying, you're studying. When they say you can't, you say, "Watch me." That's what you did. Riley thought about the years of brutal training, the endless hours in the gym, on the range, in the water, the broken bones and torn muscles, and moments of absolute despair. That's what I did. "Will you teach me?" The question caught Riley off guard. She looked at this young woman, barely out of boot camp, asking for guidance from someone she had just met. "I'm not going to be here long," Riley said. "This is temporary duty. I'll be reassigned as soon as I'm cleared. Just while you're here, please, I want to learn how to be like you." Riley almost smiled. "You don't want to be like me, Michelle. Trust me." "Why not?" "Because I've killed people with my bare hands. Because I've watched friends die in my arms. Because I wake up every night seeing faces of the men I've ended. Because the cost is higher than you can imagine." Chen's expression shifted. Some of the hero worship faded, replaced by something more complex. "I don't care about the cost," she said quietly. "I care about never feeling helpless again." Riley studied her for a long moment. She saw something familiar in those young eyes, a fire that wouldn't be extinguished by warnings or discouragement. "Tomorrow morning," she said finally. "0500, the gym, Don't be late. Chen's face lit up. Yes, ma'am, thank you. Thank you so much. She practically ran down the hallway. Riley watched her go. Something stirred in her chest. An emotion she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Maybe something good could come from this mess after all? She closed her door and turned back to her empty room. Her phone buzzed. A text message from a blocked number. Base Commander's office, 0900 tomorrow. Bring your service dress. Riley stared at the message. Service dress meant formal. Formal meant serious. Either she was about to receive a commendation or face a court-martial. Maybe both. She set down the phone and began ironing her uniform. Tomorrow would bring answers. Or more questions. Either way, she would be ready. At precisely 2000 hours, Daniel Vance walked into O'Malley's bar. The place was a Navy institution. Dark wood, cheap beer, and photos of warships on every wall. Generations of sailors had celebrated promotions and mourned losses within these walls. Master Chief Antonio Rodriguez sat in a corner booth, his back to the wall. Old habits die hard. Vance slid into the seat across from him. Rodriguez looked older than Vance remembered. More gray in his hair. More lines around his eyes. But the intensity was still there. The coiled readiness of a man who had spent 30 years in the shadows. Thanks for meeting me, Vance said. Couldn't exactly say no. Not when you dropped that name. A waitress appeared. They ordered beers and waited until she was out of earshot. What do you know about Hayes? Rodriguez asked. Not much. She's at my command on temporary duty. Today she put a lieutenant commander in the hospital in less than 2 seconds. Rodriguez whistled low. Webb, how did you know? That asshole's reputation precedes him. Been waiting for someone to take him down a notch. She did more than take him down a notch. She may have ended his career. And hers. Rodriguez shook his head slowly. Her career isn't going anywhere. Trust me. What do you mean? How much do you know about Naval Special Warfare Development Group? Vance leaned forward. DevGru SEAL Team 6 Tier 1 operators. Best of the best. And you know women aren't supposed to be in those units. Right. The SEALs just started accepting female candidates a few years ago. None have made it through buds yet. Rodriguez took a long pull of his beer. That's the official story. Vance's stomach tightened. What's the unofficial story? The unofficial story is that there have been women in special operations for longer than anyone admits. Not many. A handful. The ones who were so exceptional they couldn't be ignored. Hayes, Rodriguez nodded slowly. Riley Hayes is one of the most decorated special operators you've never heard of. She made it through buds 3 years ago. Not publicly, not officially. A separate selection process for candidates they wanted to keep off the books. Why off the books? Because she's not just good, Vance. She's a savant. The kind of natural talent that comes along once in a generation. Her instructors didn't know what to do with her. She broke every record they had. Marksmanship, combatives, tactical problem-solving. Everything. Vance felt the world shifting beneath his feet. Why haven't I heard of her? Because she's been doing work that officially doesn't happen. In countries we officially aren't operating in. Against targets that officially don't exist. How do you know all this? Rodriguez smiled grimly. Because I trained her. 3 years ago, I was her primary instructor for advanced close-quarters combat. Spent 6 months trying to find someone who could beat her in hand-to-hand. Did you find anyone? No. Vance sat back. The pieces were falling into place. The impossible speed. The surgical precision. The complete emotional control. What's she doing at Norfolk? Rodriguez's expression darkened. She was on an operation 6 weeks ago. Details are classified beyond anything I can access. What I know is that her team was compromised. Ambushed. What happened? 4 operators went in. 2 came out. She was one of them. My God. She carried her teammate 3 miles through hostile territory with 2 bullets in her leg. Then she went back. Went back for what? For the bodies. Left no one behind. Vance couldn't speak. The image was too vivid. A young woman wounded and alone, dragging herself back into hell to recover her fallen brothers. She's been on medical leave since then. The physical wounds healed. But Rodriguez tapped the side of his head. The Navy wanted her somewhere quiet. Somewhere she could decompress before her next assignment. And she ended up in Webb's training class. Wrong place, wrong time. Or maybe right place, right time, depending on how you look at it. Vance thought about Webb. The arrogance, the contempt, the absolute certainty that he was superior. He had picked a fight with someone who had gone through hell and come out the other side. Someone who had earned the right to stand among the most elite warriors on the planet. What happens now? Vance asked. Now it gets interesting. Webb filed assault charges. That triggered a review. That review triggered some very uncomfortable questions about why a classified asset was exposed to a situation like that. Uncomfortable for who? For everyone. The base commander, the training command, everyone up the chain who should have known better. And Hayes, Rodriguez finished his beer. Riley Hayes will be fine. She always is. The question is whether anyone else survives the fallout. He stood up and dropped a 20 on the table. Watch out for her, Vance. She's one of the good ones. Maybe the best I've ever seen. But she's been through more than anyone should have to bear. If she needs a friend, be one. I will. Rodriguez turned to leave, then stopped. One more thing. Tomorrow morning there's going to be a visitor at your command. Admiral Keene, head of Naval Special Warfare Command. Vance felt the blood drain from his face. An admiral coming here. To clean up this mess, and to make sure Riley Hayes is protected. Rodriguez smiled. Webb has no idea what he stepped in. By this time tomorrow he's going to wish that numb arm was the worst of his problems. He walked out without looking back. Vance sat alone in the booth, his untouched beer growing warm in his hand. Admiral Keene. DevGru. Classified Operations. A 25-year-old woman who had carried wounded teammates through enemy territory and gone back for the dead. He had thought today was about a simple assault case. He had been wrong. Tomorrow, the real storm would begin. Riley arrived at the base commander's office at exactly 0:45, 15 minutes early. She had learned long ago that early was on time, and on time was late. Her service dress uniform was immaculate. Every ribbon perfectly aligned. Every crease razor sharp. Her shoes reflected the fluorescent lights like mirrors. She had worn this uniform to funerals, to award ceremonies, to meetings that decided whether missions lived or died. Today, she didn't know which category this meeting would fall into. The Admiral's aide, a lieutenant commander with more decorations than years in service, met her in the waiting area. Specialist Hayes. Riley nodded. She noticed he used her real rate. Not petty officer. Specialist, the designation used exclusively in special operations. Admiral Keene will see you shortly. He's finishing a call with the Pentagon. Understood, sir. She sat in one of the hard plastic chairs that lined the wall. The aide returned to his desk. Neither spoke. Riley's mind drifted despite her best efforts to stay present. 6 weeks ago. The mountains of a country she couldn't name, a mission that officially never happened. 4 operators, her team, her brothers, Chief Warrant Officer Marcus Stone, 15 years in. 3 kids at home. He had shown her pictures the night before the mission. Petty Officer First Class David Chen. No relation to Michelle. Quiet. Deadly. Could hit a target at 800 meters in complete darkness. Senior Chief James Wilson. Her mentor. The man who had believed in her when no one else did, who had stood up for her in rooms full of men who thought she didn't belong. And her, the youngest, the only woman. The one they called Ghost because she moved through combat like she wasn't even there. They had been compromised before they even hit the ground. Someone had talked, someone had sold them out. The ambush came from 3 directions. Stone went down in the first volley. Chen took 2 rounds to the chest, pulling him to cover. Wilson grabbed Riley and shoved her behind a rock formation as bullets tore through the air around them. "Get Chen and get out," he had ordered. "That's not a suggestion. I'm not leaving you. You don't have a choice. Someone has to survive to report what happened here. That's you." "Senior Chief, that's an order, Hayes. The last one I'll ever give you. Now go." She had gone. Dragging Chen's bleeding body through 3 miles of hostile terrain, taking fire, returning fire, moving through the darkness like the ghost they called her. She had made it to the extraction point, called in the helicopters, gotten Chen to the medics. Then she had turned around. Wilson was still out there. Stone, too. Dead or alive, she wasn't leaving them. The recovery team found her 4 hours later, sitting in the blood-soaked dirt next to Wilson's body. She had carried him 2 miles on a shattered leg. She had refused to leave him behind. Stone's body had been recovered by the same team. All 4 operators accounted for. No one left in enemy hands. That was the Navy way. That was the SEAL way. That was her way. Specialist Hayes. Riley blinked. The aide was standing in front of her. "Admiral Keene will see you now." She stood, straightened her uniform, and walked through the door. Admiral William Keene was not what she expected. Most flag officers she had met were politicians in uniform, smooth talkers who had climbed the ranks through connections and careful image management. Keene was different. His handshake was firm, his gaze direct. The trident pin on his chest marked him as a SEAL. The scars on his hands marked him as someone who had done the work, not just managed it. "Sit down, Specialist." Riley sat. The base commander, Captain Morrison, sat to her left. Senior Chief Vance stood against the wall. Lieutenant Commander Webb was notably absent. Keene opened a folder on the desk in front of him. "I've read the incident report. I've reviewed the witness statements. I've seen the security footage." He looked up at her. "Do you have anything to add?" "No, sir. The reports are accurate. Lieutenant Commander Webb claims you attacked him without provocation." "That's not accurate, sir." "I know. I watched the footage. He threw the first strike. You responded with defensive force." Riley said nothing. "What I want to know," Keene continued, "is why you didn't end him." The question hung in the air. Captain Morrison shifted uncomfortably. Vance's eyebrows rose slightly. "Sir," Riley asked, "I've seen your training evaluations. I know what you're capable of. That takedown was textbook, but you pulled your punches. You could have done significantly more damage. Why didn't you?" Riley considered her answer carefully. "He wasn't a threat, sir. He was a problem to be managed, not an enemy to be eliminated. There's a difference." Keene nodded slowly. "That's the right answer. A lot of operators in your position would have let their emotions take over, would have made an example of him." "I don't make examples, sir. I complete objectives. And your objective in that moment, end the threat with minimal force and minimal collateral damage." Keene closed the folder. "Lieutenant Commander Webb has filed formal charges against you. Assault on a superior officer. Conduct unbecoming. Insubordination." Riley's expression didn't change. "Those charges have been dismissed." Captain Morrison's head snapped up. "Sir, with respect, there are procedures. The procedures have been followed, Captain. The charges were reviewed by JAG at Naval Special Warfare Command. They found them to be without merit based on the evidence." "But, sir," Lieutenant Commander Webb struck a subordinate during a training exercise. He did so after she explicitly warned him that she would defend herself. He did so in front of 40 witnesses. The only reason he's not facing charges himself is professional courtesy and the desire to avoid a media circus. Keene's voice hardened. That courtesy has limits. Webb has been informed that his assignment to this command is terminated effective immediately. He will be reassigned to a staff position at Fleet Forces Command, where he will have no contact with training personnel. Morrison's face went pale. Admiral Webb has connections. His father is a retired Rear Admiral. His uncle sits on the Armed Services Committee. I'm aware of his connections, Captain. I'm also aware that those connections won't protect him if this incident becomes public knowledge. A commissioned officer striking a female enlisted sailor during training. In the current climate, his career would be over within a week. Keene turned back to Riley. Webb's family has been informed that any attempt to retaliate against you will result in the immediate release of the security footage to every major news outlet in the country. They've agreed to accept the reassignment quietly. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me. You handled yourself with more restraint than most operators would have shown. That speaks well of your training and your character. He stood. Riley stood with him. There's one more matter to discuss. Your recovery period was scheduled to end in 2 weeks. Given the circumstances, we're moving that timeline up. You're cleared for return to active duty, effective immediately. Riley felt something shift in her chest. Sir, your team needs you, Hayes. We all do. Report to Coronado by end of week for reassignment briefing. Yes, sir. Keene extended his hand. She shook it. Your teammates would be proud of you, he said quietly. Stone, Chen, Wilson, they'd be damn proud. Riley's throat tightened. She didn't trust herself to speak. Keene seemed to understand. He nodded once and walked out of the office. Captain Morrison followed, shooting Riley a look that was equal parts resentment and grudging respect. Vance remained. Well, he said after a long moment. That was something. Yes, Senior Chief. You're really one of them dev group. I'm really one of them. Vance shook his head slowly. I've been in the Navy 28 years. I thought I'd seen everything. There's always more to see, Senior Chief. He laughed. It was a genuine sound, warm and surprised. I suppose there is. He walked toward the door, then stopped. Hayes. That young woman. Chen. Michelle Chen. Yes. She's been asking about you. Wants to follow in your footsteps. Riley thought about the conversation from the night before. The fire in Michelle's eyes. The determination. She has potential. She does. But this life, it takes more than potential. I know. Just be careful what you teach her, what you inspire her to become. Some doors once opened can't be closed. Riley nodded slowly. I understand, Senior Chief. He held her gaze for a moment, then nodded. Good luck out there, Ghost. The nickname hit her like a punch to the chest. She hadn't heard it spoken aloud since the mission, since Wilson died. Thank you, Senior Chief. He left. She stood alone in the empty office. Ghost. The name she had earned in blood and darkness. The name her team had given her because she moved through combat like a spirit untouchable and unstoppable. The name that now felt like a weight around her neck. She walked out of the building into the gray Norfolk morning. The air was thick with humidity and the smell of salt water. Somewhere in the distance, a ship's horn sounded. 3 days. 3 days until she returned to Coronado. 3 days until she rejoined the fight. 3 days to figure out how to say goodbye to the ghosts that haunted her. She was halfway across the parade ground when she heard footsteps running behind her. Specialist Hayes, wait. Riley turned. Michelle Chen was sprinting toward her, still in PT gear, her face flushed from exertion. "I heard—" Michelle gasped. "I heard you're leaving." "Word travels fast." "Is it true? Are you really going back?" "Yes." Michelle's face fell. "But you said you'd train me. You said tomorrow morning the gym, 5 a.m. Riley had forgotten. In the chaos of the past 12 hours, she had completely forgotten. "I'm sorry, Chen. Things have changed." "Please," Michelle's voice cracked. "I know I'm just some boot who doesn't know anything, but what you showed me yesterday, what you did to that lieutenant, it changed something in me. I need to learn. I need to be better." Riley studied the young woman's face. The desperation there was familiar. She had felt it herself years ago, before she had proven herself. "Why? What? Why do you need to be better? What are you running from?" Michelle's eyes widened. Then her jaw set. "My father. He was Navy, a chief. Served 20 years. When I told him I wanted to enlist, he laughed. Said women couldn't hack it. Said I'd wash out in boot camp." "But you didn't." "No. I finished top of my class. I got orders to intelligence. I thought I'd finally proven myself. But it wasn't enough." Michelle shook her head. "He still doesn't believe in me. Still thinks I'm playing pretend. Still waiting for me to fail so he can say I told you so." Riley felt the old familiar anger stir in her chest. How many women had heard the same words? How many had been told they weren't good enough, couldn't hack it, didn't belong? "What's your father's name?" "Chief Petty Officer Robert Chen, retired." "Why?" "No reason." But there was a reason. A name to remember. Another voice in the chorus of doubt that women like them had to silence every single day. "I leave in 3 days," Riley said. "That's not enough time to teach you what you need to know." Michelle's face crumbled. "But it's enough time to show you where to start." Hope flickered back to life in those young eyes. "Really? Tomorrow morning. 5 a.m. The gym. Don't be late." "I won't, I promise." Riley nodded and turned to walk away. "Specialist Hayes." She stopped. "Thank you. For believing in me." Riley thought about Senior Chief Wilson. About the day he had stood up for her in a room full of men who wanted her gone. About the words he had spoken that changed her life. "Everyone deserves someone who believes in them," she said. "Just make sure you deserve the belief." She walked away, leaving Michelle Chen standing on the parade ground, her face wet with tears she didn't bother to hide. That night, Riley sat in her quarters packing her sea bag. There wasn't much to pack. She traveled light, always had. Her phone buzzed, a text from a number she didn't recognize. "Heard you're leaving. Wanted to say good luck. You deserve better than what happened here." Vance. She smiled, typed a response. "Thank you, Senior Chief. Take care of Chen for me." "Will do. Stay safe out there, Ghost." Ghost. There it was again, the name that followed her everywhere. She set down the phone and picked up the one personal item she had brought with her. A photograph creased and faded, showing 4 people in desert camouflage. Stone, Chen, Wilson, and her. The photo had been taken 3 days before the mission. 3 days before everything fell apart. They were laughing in the picture. Stone was making bunny ears behind Wilson's head. Chen was rolling his eyes. Riley was captured mid-laugh, her face lit up with genuine joy. She didn't remember the last time she had laughed like that. "I'm going back," she whispered to the photograph. "Back to the fight. Back to finish what we started." The faces in the photo didn't respond. They never did. I'm sorry I couldn't save you, all of you. I'm sorry I wasn't fast enough, strong enough, good enough. Her voice broke. But I swear to God, I will make it mean something. Your deaths will mean something. I will be the operator you believed I could be. I will honor your memory with every mission, every kill, every moment I have left. She pressed the photograph to her chest. Rest easy, brothers. I've got the watch from here. The tears came then. Silent. Private. The tears she had been holding back since that night in the mountains, when she had sat beside Wilson's body and screamed at a God she wasn't sure she believed in. She cried for Stone and his 3 kids who would grow up without a father. She cried for Chen, who had died protecting his teammate. She cried for Wilson, who had given his life so she could live. And she cried for herself, for the woman she had been before, for the innocence she had lost, for the weight she would carry for the rest of her life. When the tears finally stopped, she felt something she hadn't felt in 6 weeks. Peace. Not happiness. Not closure. But peace. The quiet acceptance that came from knowing you had done everything you could, and it still wasn't enough, and somehow you had to keep going anyway. She wiped her face, tucked the photograph into her sea bag, and finished packing. Tomorrow she would train Michelle Chen. The day after she would say goodbye to Norfolk, and then she would return to the war, to the shadows, to the life she had chosen. The life of a ghost. The next morning at 0500, Michelle Chen was already waiting in the gymnasium when Riley arrived. "You're early," Riley said. "You said don't be late. I figured early was better." Riley almost smiled. "Smart." She set down her bag and faced the young woman. "Before we start, I need you to understand something. What I'm going to teach you isn't about fighting. It's about surviving. It's about being so prepared, so aware, so in control that you never have to fight in the first place." "I understand." "No, you don't. Not yet. But you will." And Riley moved to the center of the mat. "Show me your stance." Michelle planted her feet in what she thought was a fighting position. "Wrong. Your weight is too far forward. You're telegraphing your intentions. An experienced opponent would read you like a book." She adjusted Michelle's position, moved her feet, shifted her hips. "Feel the difference?" "Yes." "Good. Now hit me." Michelle hesitated. "What? Hit me. Right now. As hard as you can." "I don't want to hurt you." Riley laughed. It was a short, sharp sound. "You won't." Michelle swung. Riley wasn't there. She had moved 3 inches to the left, just enough to avoid the blow. "Again." Michelle swung again. Missed again. Again. This went on for 10 minutes. Michelle swinging, missing, growing more frustrated with each attempt. Finally, she stopped breathing hard. How do you do that? I don't move faster than you. I start moving before you do." "That's impossible." "No, it's observation. You telegraph every punch. Your eyes, your breathing, the tension in your shoulder, they all tell me what you're going to do before you do it." "So how do I stop telegraphing?" You learn to control every part of your body, every muscle, every twitch. You become so aware of yourself that nothing escapes without your permission. Michelle stared at her. "That sounds like it takes years." "It does. But you start now, one day at a time, one movement at a time." For the next 2 hours, Riley taught her the basics: breathing, stance, awareness. The fundamental building blocks that every elite warrior mastered before they ever threw a punch. Michelle absorbed it all, like a sponge. She asked intelligent questions. She corrected her mistakes quickly. She never complained, never made excuses. When they finally stopped, both of them drenched in sweat, Riley felt something unexpected. Pride. "You did well today," she said. Michelle beamed. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. This was the easy part. Everything gets harder from here." "I don't care. I'll do whatever it takes." Riley studied her face. The determination was real. The fire was genuine. Maybe, just maybe, this one would make it. "Same time tomorrow," she said, "and the day after, until I leave. I'll be here. I know you will." Riley picked up her bag and walked toward the door. "Specialist Hayes," she stopped. "When you come back, if you come back, will you train me again?" Riley thought about the missions ahead, the danger, the uncertainty, the very real possibility that she wouldn't come back at all. "If I come back," she said, "I'll find you." It was the closest thing to a promise she could give. Michelle nodded. "I'll be ready." Riley walked out into the morning light. 2 more days, 2 more sessions with Michelle, then back to war. She found herself looking forward to both. The day before Riley's departure, word spread through Naval Station Norfolk like a virus. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb had been found in the parking lot of the Officers Club at Zo 300, drunk, crying, holding a resignation letter he had written but couldn't bring himself to sign. The base police had escorted him to his quarters. The incident report was filed under medical emergency to protect what little remained of his dignity. Riley heard the news from Senior Chief Vance during their morning coffee. "He's finished," Vance said. "Not officially, but everyone knows. His reputation is destroyed. No one will serve under him. No one will vouch for him." Riley wrapped her hands around her cup. "I didn't want this." "You didn't cause this. He did. The moment he decided to make an example of you, he signed his own death warrant. There's no satisfaction in watching someone fall apart." Vance studied her face. "Most people in your position would be celebrating." "I'm not most people." "No, you're definitely not." They sat in silence for a moment. The mess hall was mostly empty at this hour, just a few early risers and night shift workers finishing their meals. "What happens to him now?" Riley asked. "The reassignment still stands. He'll report to Fleet Forces Command next week. Push papers, attend meetings, die slowly behind a desk." "That might be worse than a court-martial." "For someone like Webb, absolutely. He defined himself by his position, his authority, his image as a warrior. Now all of that is gone." Riley thought about the man she had put on the ground, the terror in his eyes, the complete helplessness. She had seen that look before, in the eyes of enemies who realized too late that they had underestimated her. But Webb wasn't an enemy. He was a broken man who had let his ego destroy everything he had built. "I should talk to him," she said. Vance's eyebrows shot up. "What? Before I leave, I should talk to him." "Why? After what he did to you?" "Because someone should. Because everyone else has written him off. Because that's not who I want to be." Vance shook his head slowly. "You're either the most forgiving person I've ever met, or the craziest. Maybe both. Probably both." Riley stood. "Where is he now?" "His quarters, Building 7, Room 12. But Hayes, I don't think this is a good idea." "Noted, Senior Chief." She walked out before he could argue further. The walk to Building 7 took 5 minutes. 5 minutes to prepare what she would say. 5 minutes to question whether this was wisdom or foolishness. She knocked on the door of Room 12. No answer. She knocked again. Harder. "Go away." The voice was hoarse. Broken. "Lieutenant Commander Webb, it's Specialist Hayes." A long silence. What do you want? To talk. There's nothing to talk about. Please, sir, 5 minutes. Another silence. Then footsteps. The door cracked open. The man on the other side was barely recognizable. His uniform was wrinkled. His eyes were red and swollen. He hadn't shaved in at least 2 days. Come to gloat? He asked. No, sir? Then why are you here? Because I think you need to hear something, and I think I need to say it. Webb stared at her for a long moment. Then he stepped back and let her in. The room was a disaster. Clothes scattered everywhere. Empty bottles on the desk. The resignation letter Vance had mentioned lay crumpled on the floor. Riley didn't comment on any of it. Say what you came to say and get out, Webb muttered. I'm not here to judge you, sir. Everyone else is. I'm not everyone else. Webb slumped into a chair. He suddenly looked much older than his 38 years. Do you know what it's like, he asked, to have everything you've worked for destroyed in 2 seconds? Yes, sir, I do. He looked up at her. For the first time, there was something other than self-pity in his eyes. Curiosity. 6 weeks ago, I watched 3 of my teammates die, Riley said. Men I had trained with, fought with, bled with. I held one of them as he took his last breath. Webb said nothing. I carried his body for 2 miles because I couldn't bear the thought of leaving him behind. I have his blood on my hands. Literally. It took 3 showers to get it all off. I didn't know. No one does. It's classified. But I'm telling you because I need you to understand something. She met his eyes. What happened in that gymnasium wasn't about you. It wasn't about proving I'm better than you. It was about survival. Pure instinct. When you hit me, my training took over. I responded the way I've been trained to respond. You could have killed me. Yes. Why didn't you? Riley considered the question. It was the same question Admiral Keene had asked, the same question she had asked herself. Because you're not my enemy, sir. You're a man who made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But a mistake is not the same as evil. Webb's eyes filled with tears. He wiped them away angrily. I've destroyed everything. My career, my reputation, my self-respect. What am I supposed to do now? You rebuild. How? The same way I did. 1 day at a time. 1 choice at a time. You accept responsibility for what you did. You learn from it. You become better. It's not that simple. No, it's not. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. But it's possible. Riley stood. I'm leaving tomorrow, sir. Going back to my unit. Back to the fight. I don't know if I'll ever see you again. But I want you to know something. Webb looked up at her. I forgive you. The words hung in the air between them. What you did was wrong. It was cruel and unprofessional, and you deserved the consequences. But I forgive you. Not because you deserve forgiveness, but because carrying anger is a weight I can't afford. Webb's face crumpled. Real tears now. The kind that couldn't be hidden or wiped away. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I know. She walked to the door. Hayes. She stopped. Thank you. For coming here. For saying what you said. You're welcome, sir. I don't deserve your forgiveness. No, you don't. But that's the point, isn't it? Forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about letting go. She opened the door. Good luck, Lieutenant Commander. I hope you find your way back. She walked out without looking back. The final training session with Michelle Chen happened at 0500 on Riley's last day at Norfolk. Michelle was waiting when Riley arrived. She had been waiting for 20 minutes. I couldn't sleep, Michelle admitted. Kept thinking about today. Nervous. terrified. What if I forget everything you taught me? You won't. How do you know? Because the things that matter stay with you. The techniques, the drills, those might fade. But the principles, the mindset, those become part of who you are. They moved to the center of the mat. Show me your stance, Riley said. Michelle planted her feet. Her weight was balanced. Her hands were positioned correctly. Her eyes were focused but relaxed. Better, Riley said. Much better. I practiced. Every spare moment I had. It shows. For the next hour, they worked through everything Riley had taught her. The breathing exercises, the awareness drills, the basic defensive techniques. Michelle had improved dramatically. Her movements were more fluid. Her reactions were faster. The raw potential Riley had seen on the first day was beginning to take shape. When they finally stopped, Michelle was breathing hard but smiling. I did it. I actually did it. You did. I'm proud of you. The words made Michelle's eyes shine. Really? Really? You've come further in 3 days than most people come in 3 months. You have talent, Chen. Real talent. I had a good teacher. Riley shook her head. I showed you the door. You walked through it. The credit is yours. They sat on the edge of the mat, cooling down. What happens now? Michelle asked. After you leave? You keep training. Find instructors who can teach you what I couldn't. Push yourself, every day. And if I get stuck, if I don't know what to do? Riley reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This is a list of techniques and principles I didn't have time to teach you. Study them. Practice them. When you've mastered everything on this list, find me. Find you how? If you're good enough, you'll figure it out. Michelle took the paper like it was made of gold. I won't let you down, she said. I promise. I know you won't. Riley stood and extended her hand. Michelle took it. Thank you, Michelle said, for everything. Thank me by becoming the warrior I know you can be. I will. Riley picked up her bag and headed for the door. Specialist Hayes. She turned. When I make it, when I become someone you'd be proud of, I'm going to find you, and I'm going to thank you properly. Riley smiled. A real smile. The first one in weeks. I'll hold you to that. She walked out into the morning sun. The flight to San Diego left at 1400. Riley spent the morning handling the administrative details of her departure, checking out of her quarters, returning equipment, signing the endless paperwork the military required. Senior Chief Vance found her in the administration building filling out her final forms. So this is it, he said. This is it. I'm going to miss having you around. The excitement, anyway. Riley laughed. I think Norfolk has had enough excitement to last a while. Probably true. He handed her a small box. What's this? Open it. She lifted the lid. Inside was a challenge coin. The insignia of Naval Station Norfolk on one side. On the other, an inscription, Quiet Competence. Riley's throat tightened. The command had it made, Vance explained. After what happened. They wanted you to have something to remember us by. I'll treasure it. You better. That coin represents everything we learned from you in the short time you were here. Riley tucked the box into her bag. Take care of yourself, Senior Chief. You too, Hayes. Stay safe out there. I'll do my best. Do better than your best. Come back alive. That's the plan. They shook hands. It felt inadequate somehow, too formal for what they had been through together. Vance seemed to feel it too. He pulled her into a brief, fierce hug. Give 'em hell, Ghost. Always do, Senior Chief. She walked out of the building and headed for the base gate. Her ride to the airport was waiting. A black SUV with government plates. The driver was a young petty officer who didn't ask questions. As they pulled away from Naval Station Norfolk, Riley looked back one last time. 3 days. That's all it had been. 3 days that had changed everything. She had come here to recover, to heal, to find some semblance of peace. Instead, she had found something else. A purpose, a connection, a reminder of why she did what she did. She thought about Michelle Chen practicing her stances in an empty gym. She thought about Marcus Webb crying alone in his quarters, facing the long road to redemption. She thought about Senior Chief Vance standing up for her when it would have been easier to look away. She thought about Admiral Keene, a flag officer who still remembered what it meant to be a warrior. The Navy was full of people like Webb, people who confused rank with wisdom authority, with strength. But it was also full of people like the others, people who understood that true leadership was about service, not power. The car pulled onto the highway. Norfolk disappeared behind them. Riley closed her eyes and let herself rest. In a few hours, she would be back in Coronado. Back with her unit. Back in the world of shadows and secrets and missions that officially didn't exist. Back to war. But she was different now. The weight she had carried since that night in the mountains was still there, but it felt lighter somehow. Shared. She had forgiven Webb. She had inspired Michelle. She had reconnected with the reasons she had chosen this life in the first place. The ghosts of her fallen teammates would always be with her. Stone and Chen and Wilson. They would walk beside her into every firefight, every impossible situation, every moment of darkness. But they wouldn't weigh her down anymore. They would lift her up. The airport appeared on the horizon. San Diego awaited. Riley opened her eyes and sat up straight. Time to go home. The flight was uneventful. 5 hours of recycled air and bad coffee, and the constant hum of jet engines. Riley used the time to review the briefing materials that had been waiting in her email. A new mission, new objectives, new dangers. The details were classified even on a secure device. But the broad strokes were clear enough. Her team, what remained of it, had been reinforced with new operators, young guns who had proven themselves in training but hadn't yet been tested in combat. They would need guidance, leadership, someone to show them what it meant to be a DevGru operator. That someone was her. The plane touched down at San Diego International just after 1900 local time. A car was waiting to take her to the naval base at Coronado. The driver this time was someone she recognized. Petty Officer Second Class David Park. He had been 2 classes behind her in selection. "Ghost," he said, grinning. "Welcome back." "Park, you got old." 2 years in the teams will do that." They drove through the San Diego traffic, catching up on everything that had happened since they had last seen each other. Missions completed. Friends lost. The endless cycle of deployment and recovery that defined their lives. "How's the new team?" Riley asked. Park's expression sobered. "Green. Real green. 2 of them have never been outside the wire. And they assigned them to DevGru. Command wanted the best training them. That's you. No pressure. None at all." The car turned onto the base. Security checkpoints flashed past. Finally, they pulled up in front of the team building. Riley stepped out and looked up at the structure. It looked the same as it always had. Unremarkable from the outside. Deadly within. "They're waiting for you," Park said. "Briefing room. Thanks for the ride." "Anytime, Ghost. Good to have you back." She walked into the building. The familiar smell hit her immediately. Gun oil, sweat, coffee, the smell of warriors preparing for war. The briefing room was at the end of the hall. She could hear voices inside. Nervous laughter. The energy of young operators trying to prove they belonged. Riley straightened her uniform, took a deep breath, and opened the door. 6 faces turned toward her. 5 men, 1 woman. All young, all eager, all terrified of the legend they knew was about to judge them. "I'm Specialist Hayes," she said. "But you can call me Ghost. I'll be your team leader for the foreseeable future." She walked to the front of the room. "I know what you've heard about me. Some of it is true. Most of it is exaggerated. None of it matters." She looked at each of them in turn. "What matters is what happens from this moment forward. We have a mission, a hard one. People are going to try to kill us. Our job is to make sure they fail." The young operators straightened in their seats. "I don't care where you came from. I don't care what your training scores were. I don't care if your daddy was an admiral or your mama was a senator. In this room, in this team, we earn our place. Every day. Every mission." She saw the fear in their eyes. Good. Fear could be channeled. Arrogance could not. "I lost 3 teammates 6 weeks ago. Good men. Better operators. They died because someone made a mistake. Someone got sloppy. Someone thought they knew better than the training taught." Her voice hardened. "That will not happen again. Not on my watch. We will train harder than we've ever trained. We will prepare for everything. We will leave nothing to chance." She paused. "And when we go out there, when we face the enemy, we will show them what it means to stand against the best warriors on the planet." The room was silent. "Any questions?" The young woman in the back raised her hand. She couldn't have been more than 23. Red hair, green eyes. The same fire Riley had seen in Michelle Chen. "What happened to the people who killed your teammates?" Riley's expression didn't change. "They're no longer a concern." The woman nodded slowly. "Good. What's your name?" "Petty Officer 3rd Class Sarah Mitchell, but everyone calls me Red." "Welcome to the team, Red. Now let's get to work." The briefing began. Maps were spread. Intel was analyzed. Plans were formed. Riley stood at the head of the table, guiding her new team through the complexities of the mission ahead. She thought about Norfolk, about Webb and Michelle and Vance, about the lessons learned and the prices paid. And she smiled. This was where she belonged. This was who she was. Ghost. Team leader. Warrior. The hunt was about to begin. 3 years passed. The world kept spinning. Wars were fought and won and lost. Presidents changed. Policies shifted. The endless machinery of conflict ground on. At Naval Station Norfolk, a new generation of sailors walked the same halls, trained on the same mats, learned the same lessons. But one thing remained constant: the star on the blue mat in the combat training gymnasium. It had faded over the years. Someone had traced over it with a fresh marker. Then someone else. And someone else after that. Each generation preserving the mark, keeping the memory alive. Senior Chief Daniel Vance. Now Master Chief. Daniel Vance stood before a circle of young sailors. His hair was grayer now, his face more lined, but his eyes still held the same intensity they always had. "Gather around," he said. "Before we start today's training, I need to tell you a story." The sailors moved closer. 23 of them. Fresh from boot camp. Eager to prove themselves. 3 years ago, on this very mat, a lieutenant commander made a mistake. The biggest mistake of his career. Vance pointed to the star on the floor. "He stood right there, And he hit a woman. A sailor he thought was weak. A sailor he thought didn't belong. The young sailors exchanged glances. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that this woman was one of the most decorated special operators in the United States military. A ghost. A legend. Someone who had killed enemies in countries you've never heard of, in missions that officially never happened. Vance let that sink in. She put him on the ground in less than 2 seconds. Not because she was angry, not because she wanted revenge, because she was a professional, because she had trained for that moment her entire life. A young woman in the front row raised her hand. "Master Chief, what happened to her?" Vance smiled. It was a knowing smile. A proud smile. She went back to her unit. Back to the fight. She's still out there as far as I know. Still serving. Still protecting people who will never know her name. And the lieutenant commander, he resigned. Took him 2 years to put his life back together. Last I heard, he was working with veterans groups, helping other officers who had lost their way. Vance walked to the center of the mat, standing directly over the star. The lesson of this story isn't about one woman beating one man. It's about assumptions. It's about the danger of judging people by what they look like instead of what they can do. He looked around at the young faces. In this Navy, you're going to serve with people who don't look like you. People who don't talk like you. People who come from places you've never been and believe things you've never considered. And if you're smart, if you're wise, you'll learn from them. You'll respect them. You'll judge them by their actions and their character, not by the boxes they check on a form. He paused. Because one day you might find yourself in a situation where your life depends on someone you underestimated. And if you've treated them with contempt, if you've made them feel like they don't belong, they might still save you. Because that's what professionals do. He pointed to the star again. But you'll have to live with knowing you didn't deserve it. The training began. Vance watched his sailors pair off, working through the drills he had taught 1,000 times. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A message from an unknown number. Watching the news. He stepped outside and pulled up the CNN app. Breaking news. A hostage rescue in a country that was definitely not supposed to have American troops. 12 aid workers freed. 0 casualties. The rescuers were described only as Special Operations Forces. Vance smiled. Another message appeared. "Miss you, old man. Still keeping the story alive," he typed back. "Every new class. Every first day." "Good. They need to hear it. They need to meet you. Maybe someday. Got another mission briefing. Stay safe, Master Chief." "You too, Ghost." He put the phone away and looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, Riley Hayes was doing what she did best. Protecting people who would never know her name. Fighting battles that would never make the news. Being a ghost. The world was a little safer because of her. And that was enough. Across the country, at the Naval Special Warfare Center in Coronado, a different ceremony was taking place. Lieutenant Commander Michelle Chen stood at attention as Admiral William Keane pinned the trident to her uniform, the gold eagle clutching a trident anchor and flintlock pistol, the symbol of the Navy SEALs, the most recognizable special operations insignia in the world. Michelle had earned it, every inch of it. 3 years of brutal training, countless moments of doubt, days when she wanted to quit, to give up, to admit that her father had been right all along. But she hadn't quit. She had pushed through. She had become what Riley Hayes had seen in her that first morning in the Norfolk gymnasium. A warrior. "Congratulations, Lieutenant Commander Chen," Keane said. "You've earned your place among the best." "Thank you, sir." The ceremony ended. The crowd dispersed. Michelle's fellow graduates congratulated her, slapped her back, welcomed her to the brotherhood. But she was looking for someone else. She found her standing in the shadows near the exit. Older now, more scars visible on her exposed forearms, but the same calm eyes, the same quiet presence. Riley Hayes. "You came," Michelle said. "I told you I would, when you were ready. I wasn't sure you'd remember." "I remember everything, Chen, including a young petty officer who promised she wouldn't let me down." Michelle felt tears threatening. She blinked them back. "I kept your list, the techniques and principles you gave me. I studied them every day, practiced them every night." "I know. I've been watching." "You have. Who do you think recommended you for the selection program?" Michelle's eyes widened. "That was you? You earned the recommendation. I just made sure the right people saw your file." Michelle didn't know what to say. 3 years of work. 3 years of sacrifice. And the woman who had started it all had been watching over her the entire time. "I don't know how to thank you," she finally managed. "You thank me by being the operator I know you can be, by leading your team with honor, by never forgetting where you came from." Riley stepped closer. "And you thank me by doing for someone else what I did for you. Find someone who needs guidance, someone who needs belief, and give it to them." Michelle nodded slowly. "I will. I know you will." Riley extended her hand. Michelle took it. "Welcome to the team's Lieutenant Commander Chen. You've earned your trident. Now earn your legacy." "Yes, ma'am." Riley turned to leave. "Wait," Michelle called. "Will I see you again?" Riley paused. A ghost of a smile crossed her face. "Count on it." Then she was gone. Disappeared into the crowd like she had never been there at all. Ghost. Michelle touched the trident on her chest. The weight of it felt right. The responsibility felt right. She thought about her father. He had died 2 years ago. Heart attack. They had reconciled before the end. He had finally seen what she had become. Finally believed. "I wish you could see me now, Dad," she whispered. "I wish you could see what I've become." But part of her knew he could. Somewhere. Somehow. She straightened her shoulders and walked out into the California sun. Her new team was waiting. Her new mission was waiting. Her legacy was just beginning. 6 months later, Riley Hayes stood in a hospital room in Germany. The man in the bed was barely recognizable. Bandages covered most of his body. Tubes ran everywhere. Machines beeped and hummed. But he was alive. Red. Sarah Mitchell. The young operator with fire in her eyes, who had asked about Riley's fallen teammates on that first day. She had taken 3 bullets during an extraction gone wrong. 2 in the vest, 1 in the shoulder. She had still managed to drag her wounded teammate to safety before collapsing. "Hey, boss," Red whispered. Her voice was weak but steady. "Hey yourself, hero." "Did everyone make it?" "Everyone made it. Thanks to you." Red closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. "I was so scared. When the bullets started flying, I was so scared." "That's normal. You're never scared." Riley sat down next to the bed. She took Red's hand in hers. "I'm always scared. Every mission, every firefight, the fear never goes away." "Then how do you do it?" "I use it. I channel it into focus, into action. Fear tells you something important is happening, something worth fighting for." Red opened her eyes. "Will I be able to go back after this?" "If you want to, if you're willing to do the work." "I want to, more than anything." "Then you will." Riley squeezed her hand. "Rest now. Heal. The team will be waiting when you're ready. Promise. Promise. Red's eyes drifted closed. Her breathing evened out. Riley sat with her for another hour, watching over her like she had watched over so many others. This was the cost. The real cost of what they did. Not the medals or the glory or the stories told in bars. The blood. The pain. The friends lost and wounded. But it was also the meaning. The purpose. The knowledge that what they did mattered. Red would heal. She would come back stronger. And one day she would sit beside another wounded warrior and pass on the same lessons. The legacy continued. The years rolled on. Riley Hayes completed 23 more missions. She lost count of the lives saved, the enemies defeated, the impossible situations survived. She trained 4 more teams, watched them grow from nervous recruits into hardened professionals, saw them go on to train teams of their own. The ripples spread outward, one warrior inspiring another, one lesson passed down to the next generation, an endless chain of competence and courage. At 40 years old, Riley finally hung up her trident. Not because she had to. She could still outshoot, outfight, and outthink most operators half her age. But because it was time. Time to let someone else lead. Time to pass the torch. Her retirement ceremony was small, classified, attended only by those with the clearance to know what she had really done. Admiral Keene, now retired himself, was there. Master Chief Vance flew in from Norfolk. Michelle Chen, now a full commander, stood in the front row, and in the back, barely visible, were dozens of others. Operators she had trained, leaders she had mentored, warriors who owed their lives to her teaching. Keene presented her with her final decoration, a medal that had no name given for actions that had no official record. The highest honor the shadow world could bestow. Specialist Riley Hayes, he said. Ghost, you have served your country with distinction for 18 years. You have completed missions that saved thousands of lives. You have trained warriors who will protect this nation for generations to come. He pinned the medal to her chest. On behalf of a grateful nation, thank you. For everything. Riley stood at attention. Her eyes were dry. Her voice was steady. It was my honor, sir. The ceremony ended. People shook her hand, embraced her, thanked her. But the moment that mattered most came at the very end. Michelle Chen approached her, now wearing the insignia of a full commander. Behind her stood a young woman in a petty officer's uniform. Nervous, eager, fire in her eyes. Riley, Michelle said, I want you to meet someone. Petty Officer Jessica Torres. She reminds me of someone I used to know. Riley looked at the young woman, saw the hunger there, the determination, the refusal to accept limitations. Nice to meet you, Petty Officer Torres. Ma'am, it's an honor. I've heard the stories. Don't believe all of them. Which ones should I believe? Riley smiled. It was the same smile Michelle remembered from all those years ago. Believe the ones that make you want to be better. Forget the rest. She looked at Michelle. You're going to train her. That's the plan, if you approve. She has the fire. I can see it. Torres straightened. I won't let you down, ma'am. Don't tell me, show me. Riley turned and walked away. Behind her, she heard Michelle's voice. Come on, Torres. We've got work to do. The legacy continued. Riley Hayes bought a small house in Montana, not far from where she had grown up, where her grandfather had taught her to shoot to fight to survive. She spent her days in quiet, reading, hiking, watching the mountains change with the seasons. But she wasn't idle. Young operators found their way to her door. Word had spread. If you wanted to learn from the best, if you wanted to understand what it really meant to be a warrior, you made the pilgrimage to Montana. She never turned anyone away. She taught them what she knew. Not just the techniques, but the philosophy. The mindset. The understanding that true strength came from discipline, not aggression. From control, not chaos. And always, she taught them about respect. You will serve with people who are different from you, she would say. You will be tempted to judge them, to dismiss them, to assume you know what they can do based on what they look like. Don't. Judge people by their actions, by their character, by the way they perform when everything falls apart. Because one day someone will underestimate you. They will assume you are less than you are. And when that happens, you will have a choice. You can prove them wrong with violence, with anger, with the need to make them suffer for their mistake. Or you can prove them wrong with competence, with professionalism, with the quiet confidence that comes from knowing exactly who you are. Choose the second path, always. Because the first path is easy, the second path is hard, and the hard path is always the right one. On a spring morning, 5 years after her retirement, Riley received a visitor. She was sitting on her porch drinking coffee, watching the sun rise over the mountains. A car pulled into her driveway. A woman stepped out. She was older now. Gray streaks in her dark hair, lines around her eyes. But Riley recognized her immediately. "Commander Chen, this is a surprise." "Admiral Chen, actually, as of last month." Riley set down her coffee and stood. "Admiral, congratulations." Michelle climbed the porch steps and stood face to face with her mentor. "I came to tell you something." "I'm listening." "Jessica Torres, the young woman I introduced you to at your retirement ceremony. She just completed her 5th deployment. She's being considered for DevGru selection. She'll make it. She will. Because of what you taught me. What I taught her." Michelle's eyes glistened. 12 years ago, you saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. You gave me 3 days of training and a piece of paper with techniques I didn't understand. You told me to find you when I was ready. I remember. I never got to tell you what that meant. How many times I wanted to quit and didn't because I couldn't stand the thought of disappointing you. How many times I read that list and pushed through because I knew you believed in me. You didn't need me to believe in you, Michelle. You needed to believe in yourself. Maybe, but you showed me how. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Worn, faded, the edges soft from years of handling. I still have it. I still have the list you gave me. I've read it 1,000 times, and now I've given copies to dozens of others. Riley took the paper, unfolded it, saw her own handwriting from 12 years ago. "The legacy continues," she said softly. "It does, because of you." They stood in silence for a long moment. 2 warriors, 2 generations, 1 unbroken chain. "Stay for breakfast," Riley finally said. "Tell me about Torres. Tell me about the others. I'd like that." They went inside together, and in the mountains of Montana, as the sun climbed higher and the world continued its endless turning, the legend of Ghost lived on. Not in medals or monuments, not in classified files or whispered stories, but in the hearts of those she had trained, in the warriors she had inspired, in the quiet professionals who understood that true strength was measured not in volume, but in silence, not in boasting, but in action. The mark on the mat at Norfolk had faded and been redrawn 100 times. But the lesson it represented would never fade. Never underestimate the quiet ones. Never assume you know someone's worth based on how they look. Never mistake silence for weakness. Because sometimes the most dangerous person in the room is the one who doesn't need to tell you they are. And sometimes the greatest legacy isn't what you accomplish yourself. It's what you inspire others to become. Riley Hayes, Ghost, Specialist, Team Leader, Mentor, Legend. Her story didn't end with her retirement. It continued in every warrior she had touched, every lesson she had shared, every life she had changed. The quiet professional doesn't seek validation. They don't need their name remembered. Their reward is the continuation of a mission. The quiet satisfaction of a job done right. The knowledge that the standards they live by will endure long after they are gone. And that is the truest legacy of all.